Well, Colorado State University's Inclusive Language Guide making headlines this week, cautioning staff members against use of certain terms that may be deemed offensive. Some of the phrases include, get this, ladies and gentlemen, male and female, and freshmen, in order to acknowledge students of all gender identities. So is this another example of political correctness on college campus gone too far? Here to react, our panel of millennials, Turning Point USA contributor Rob Smith, and social media strategist and founder of the Ruby Media Group, Chris Ruby. Thank you both for being here.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
Gentleman for being here.
Okay.
Chris, I mean, it's not just that. An early draft even used the word America. They're not saying that America is not an inclusive word. But when you say something like ladies and gentlemen or freshman's not okay, where are we going with this?
I think it's a very slippery slope, and I don't think it's headed in the right direction. So, on the one hand, I want to preface this by saying that I think, everyone is for inclusivity and rights for everyone involved here. I think the challenging part here is when you start to sort of revise and rewrite the language that we've all known and grown up with, and, enforce that on someone else. That is when it becomes problematic.
Absolutely. Rob, does it also in some ways trivialize it? I mean, we oftentimes try to get past big things, but when you force these small things on people, it confuses the issue.
Well, I think that this is what happens when the people who are supposed to be teaching our students get lost in woke Twitter, right? So they get lost in woke Twitter and everything is inclusive and all that. Like Chris said, nobody has a problem with inclusivity in general. I think that for me, what happens is that when you start policing language, and this is what the left does a lot, they police language, and we think that this is never going to make its way up into policy, but it actually does. So it starts out at the college level, policing language, and then it gets up into the policy level where you have people that are actually wanting it to be a crime to quote unquote misgender somebody, right? So when you start using craftspeople instead of craftsmen, you can't say ladies and gentlemen, it goes up into policy, and I think that's the dangerous
That is
part.
a really important point. Academia has more power than we know because they redefine what's acceptable language and then force it through the entire process. Here's a part of what Colorado State University said about the Inclusive Language Guide. They said, it's not an official policy or required practice. This document is intended as a resource to help our campus community reflect our principles of community, particularly inclusion, respect, and social justice. The guide is not about political correctness or policing grammar, but rather helping communicators practice inclusive language and helping everyone on our campus feel welcome, respected, and valued. But
here's the thing. If I'm a parent paying for my student right now, my child, to go to any of these universities, I don't want my kid to be told what is correct and what isn't. What role does the university really have in all of that?
And I think,
great point.
Yeah, and I think that there's another issue with the kids going into these schools. Turning Point USA work a lot on college campuses, and these people are actually going into the workforce. And I think that this stuff kind of like turns people into professional victims when they're just thinking about these identities so much. And it's like, am I being misgendered? Are people calling me this or calling me that? And we're not actually generating effective students and effective people that are going into the workforce. And again, with this idea of language, so we're policing language at this point that goes up into policy, because you start off with calling, like, say, illegal immigration, illegal aliens. Then it becomes illegal immigrants. Then it becomes undocumented immigrants. Then Ilhan Omar tweeted undocumented Americans.
But it's also, it really, is this the priority right now? We have a border crisis. There's so many other things, and this is what they want to focus on, changing pronouns. Like, I just don't understand.
Well, it's a long-term view of changing a society by getting rid of the idea of gender and making it all fluid. But to your point, Rob, this is turning into policy. Berkeley City Council right now is rewriting what they're calling certain things in the city. Manholes, not acceptable anymore.
Crazy.
Maintenance holes. You can't say manpower must be referred to as human effort. They can't be man-made objects. They need to be human-made. Does that make anyone's lives better?
No, and I can't imagine, I don't want to speak for women or anything like that, but I can't imagine that there was a woman walking down the street and hearing somebody call something a manhole and being offended.
I don't know a single person who's offended by that. And again, I mean, what about a ladies' room? Can you not say I need to go to the ladies' room?
No, you can't say ladies and gentlemen.
What's next? Manhattan. Are we going to change Manhattan? What about a manicure? Are we going to change that too? I mean, this is a war on language.
Yeah.
It is.
So I guess I got a person cure yesterday, right?
Yes. I mean, you can't even say that anymore.
Because if you control the language, you control the entire confines of which the debate happens, which means it's slanted toward leftists and their
Yes, but it's a larger, again, a slippery slope. It's about the American flag. It's about not wanting to stand for it. It's about wanting to change the language. When taking down the statues, when does this end?
And it's attack on a lot of traditional
traditions.
Correct.
And it's about using the government and the force of the government government to sort of push this stuff on
Well
there.
said. Well, Rob Smith, Chris Ruby, thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks so much.